Most people don't lose respect because they're weak. They lose it because of small behaviors they don't even notice. And that's what makes it dangerous, because if you can't see it, you can't fix it. You think you're doing the right thing. You think you're being polite. You think you're explaining yourself clearly, but every time you do certain things, you're quietly lowering how people see you. Not instantly, not dramatically, but slowly, consistently, until one day you feel it. People interrupt you more. They don't take you seriously. They dismiss what you say, and you don't understand why. Because in your mind, you didn't do anything wrong. But that's the problem. Respect is not just about what you do intentionally. It's about what you signal unintentionally. And most people are constantly signaling the wrong things. Without realizing it, let's start with one of the biggest mistakes. Explaining too much. This is one of the fastest ways to lose respect. And almost everyone does it. You say something, and then you keep talking. You justify it. You add more context. You try to make sure there's no misunderstanding. But what you don't realize is, the more you explain, the less confident you appear. Because confidence doesn't rush to prove itself. Confidence states something and lets it stand. But when you over-explain, you signal doubt. You signal that you need approval, and people pick up on that immediately. Not consciously, but they feel it. And once they feel that you need validation, they stop giving you respect naturally. Because respect follows certainty, not explanation. Now let's go deeper. Reacting emotionally. This is where most people lose control completely. Something happens. Someone says something, and you react instantly. You defend yourself. You raise your voice. You try to correct them. But in that moment, you're not in control. You're being controlled because your reaction is not a choice. It's automatic. And automatic behavior is predictable, and predictable people are easy to manage. So even if you're right, even if your point makes sense, the fact that you reacted emotionally lowers how people perceive you, because now they know they can move you, they can trigger you, they can influence you. And once that happens, respect drops, not because you're wrong, but because you're reactive. Now here's another one, trying to be liked. This one is subtle because it feels positive. You're being friendly, you're being agreeable, you're trying to keep things smooth. But underneath that, there's a problem. You're prioritizing approval over authenticity, and people can sense that. When you agree too quickly, when you avoid conflict, when you adjust yourself to fit others, you lose something important: your edge, your boundaries. And without boundaries, there's no respect, because respect requires distance. It requires the ability to say no, to disagree, to not always align. But when you're always trying to be liked, you remove that, and people stop seeing you as someone with authority. They see you as someone who adapts to them, and once that perception forms, it's hard to change. Now, let's talk about something most people overlook. Talking too much. You might think speaking more gives you more control, but it does the opposite. The more you talk, the more you reveal. And the more you reveal, the more predictable you become. But when you speak less, your words carry weight. People listen more carefully. They pay attention, because what is rare feels valuable. But if you're always talking, always filling the silence, your words lose impact. They become expected, and expected things are easy to ignore. So silence is not just about control, it's about value. It makes your presence heavier, more intentional, more respected. Now let's look at another mistake. Over-availability. Always being there, always responding quickly, always saying yes. At first, it feels like you're being reliable, but over time, it creates the opposite effect. You become predictable, accessible, taken for granted, because value is connected to scarcity. Not in a manipulative way, but in a natural way. If something is always available, it loses perceived importance. And the same applies to you. When people know they can always reach you, always get your attention, they stop appreciating it. And that slowly reduces respect, not because they dislike you, but because there's no tension, no distance, no boundaries. And without those, respect fades. And this is where everything connects. Because all of these behaviors come from the same place. The need to be understood, the need to be accepted, the need to maintain control through reaction. But ironically, those needs are what cause you to lose control, because they push you to act in ways that signal the opposite of confidence. And once those signals are repeated, they become your identity in the eyes of others. Not because that's who you are, but because that's what you show consistently. And perception. is built on consistency. So if you want to change how people see you, you don't start by forcing respect. You start by removing the behaviors that lose it. You stop over-explaining. You stop reacting instantly. You stop trying to be liked by everyone. You speak less, but with more intention. You create space, and in that space, something changes. Not just in how others see you, but in how you see yourself. Because now, you're not chasing validation. You're not reacting to everything. You're not overextending yourself. You're choosing, and that choice is where respect begins. And once you start choosing, instead of reacting, everything begins to shift. But here's where most people misunderstand the process. They think changing behavior is enough, that if they just act more confident, people will respect them. But behavior without internal change doesn't last, because eventually, pressure reveals what's real. So if you still feel the need to be understood, you'll explain again. If you still feel triggered, you'll react again, and the pattern continues. So the real shift is internal. It's removing the need behind the behavior, because when the need disappears, the behavior changes naturally. You don't have to remind yourself not to explain. You just don't feel the need to. You don't have to force yourself to stay calm. You are calm, and that's what people feel. Not what you say, not what you try to show, but what you actually are. And that's why some people command respect without effort. They're not trying to control perception. They've already controlled themselves, and that creates a different kind of presence, one that doesn't need to prove anything, one that doesn't rush to respond, one that doesn't react under pressure. And that presence is rare, because most people are still operating on impulse, still reacting automatically, still trying to manage how they're seen. But the more you try to control how people see you, the less control you actually have, because now your behavior depends on them, their reactions, their opinions, their approval. And that makes you unstable. But when you remove that dependency, you become stable. And stability is what people trust. It's what people respect, because they know you're not easily moved, not easily influenced, not easily controlled. And that changes how they interact with you. They become more careful, more aware, more respectful. Not because you demanded it, but because your presence requires it. And this is where things become very clear. Respect is not something you gain by adding more. It's something you gain by removing things. Removing the need to explain, removing the need to react, removing the need to be liked, removing the need to prove yourself. And when those things are gone, what's left is clarity. And clarity doesn't need to be loud. It doesn't need to be aggressive. It doesn't need to dominate. It just exists. And that existence is enough. Now understand this. Not everyone will respond positively to this shift. Some people are used to your old behavior, used to your reactions, used to your availability, used to your explanations. And when you change, they feel it. And they might test you. They might push you. They might try to provoke the old version of you. And this is where everything matters. Because if you go back, even once, the pattern resets. So consistency is everything. Not perfection, consistency. Holding your position, staying grounded, even when it feels uncomfortable, even when it feels unnatural. Because over time, that becomes your new normal, your new baseline. And once that happens, everything stabilizes. Your interactions become calmer, more controlled, more intentional. And people begin to recognize that. They respect it, not because you asked for it, but because they feel it. And that's the difference between forcing respect and becoming someone who naturally has it. One is temporary, the other is permanent. And that's the real goal. Not to control everyone, not to win every situation, but to become someone who is not easily moved, not easily influenced, not easily controlled, because once you reach that point, respect is no longer something you chase. It becomes something that follows you quietly, consistently, without effort. And it all starts with what you stop doing, not what you add, but what you remove. And once you understand that, you stop trying to gain respect. You simply stop losing it.